Welcome back to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. Today's episode is something truly special. We're joined by a fan of the show who reached out with a heartfelt letter that really moved us. Our guest, Marcel, is not only a passionate birder, but also a powerful advocate for brain and mental health. His story is truly touching, from being a world-class athlete to navigating the challenges of a severe brain injury. Through that journey, he found healing and meaning in nature and birding, which became a lifeline for his mental well-being and sense of community. We'll start by sharing the touching email he sent us, and then we'll introduce you to our inspiring new friend, Marcel. Along the way, we also talk about Belted Kingfishers, Cedar Waxwings getting drunk, and just how powerful a connection to the wildlife around you can be. Okay, go grab your binoculars and let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone, to Birds of a Feather Talk Together. This is RJ, and we're with John, Shannon, and Amanda, and we're really excited to have a guest with us this week, Marcel, who's actually a listener, and he wrote in a really nice email to us. And before we get into it with Marcel, I just wanted to read his email just because it was so touching. We thought it would be a good way to start it. So here is Marcel's email. He says, "Hi to everyone at the podcast. I want to first express how much I enjoy your podcast, which you'll understand more in a moment, once I share my birding journey with you. Even though I didn't pick up birding as a hobby until a few years ago, this journey has its roots farther back. I grew up in New Brunswick, Canada, where I partook in competitive sports all my life, mostly swimming, baseball, football, and karate. I'm 35 now, and I started karate before I was in kindergarten, so it's been a huge part of my identity for most of my life. I took a break from karate competition for 3 successive university degrees right after high school before I landed a teaching job in Nova Scotia. My future wife, who I had just met in Ontario that same year, took a leap of faith and joined me in the move, and we now teach at the same school. I returned to more dedicated karate training this same year in 2015 with the hopes of making the national team and beginning the training process to attend the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. It was not to be, as in 2016, I sustained a profoundly life-altering traumatic brain injury in my first competition, which has resulted in debilitating chronic symptoms to this day. Light sensitivity, permanent headache, chronic fatigue, among others. Life has been incredibly challenging since that point. It felt as though I died at 26, as I no longer recognized myself. The emotional and physical toll was profound, made worse by a long list of chronic sports injuries. I barely hung on to my job, but I did the best I could for the following years. I loved teaching middle school French and history, without really finding something that could keep the pain and mental anguish at bay. I promise the relevance to birding is approaching. At my rock bottom, I decided to do psychotherapy in 2023 and was introduced to acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, for chronic pain. In short, I was to learn to accept my pain as a part of my life, yet to not let it control my life and to commit to doing the things I found fulfilling, but I hadn't found them yet. Fortunately, it only took a few sessions. One mid to late summer's day on a walk through our small town with my wife, we happened to walk past a berry-producing tree only a few feet off the sidewalk, and in the branches at eye level was a flock of Cedar Waxwings, my spark bird. I knew nothing about birds, and I was in complete awe at their beauty. I quickly looked up what they were, and from that point, I was deeply invested. Fast forward 2 years to today, and I go birding alone or with my wife probably every other day, near or far. This year, I even put up my own tree swallow bird boxes in the community trail near my house, with one of them currently occupied. I know dozens of birds by sound. I now do bird photography, and I attend local birding events, and am starting to meet more of the Nova Scotia birding community. It also led me to naturalist and conservation events, which I sometimes attend too. I partially tore my hamstring this past fall while running, which I do quite often now, and birding has kept me from sliding back into a dark place while I recover. I also try to improve my French whenever I can, and you introduced me to The Feather Thief, which I read in French before listening to those episodes. Honestly, so riveting. The reason today, of all days, that I am messaging you is because the truly life-altering impact of my discovery of my love for birds was never so evident as today. Last week, I was asked to lead part of a grade 7 field trip to the Halifax Public Gardens today and give a bird talk about migration, common species, etc., before the kids went off to find whichever birds they could. I put together a little bird bingo sheet for them. A few days ago, I learned that a black-poll warbler was spotted in the gardens, and so I added it to the sheet for the kids, and now with my own goal of spotting it, but knowing the likelihood was slim to none. Yesterday, while checking on my swallow boxes, I checked if you had a new episode out, which happened to be a revisit on the black-poll warbler. I listened and took a few mental notes to share with the kids. This morning before work, it happened to be the nicest morning in quite a while, so I had my first coffee of the season out on my front porch before getting ready. I had about 10 minutes before I had to go to work, and I started to hear a bird I've never heard before. I quickly used the Merlin app, and guess what? It was a black-poll warbler in my big maple tree right in front of me. I couldn't see it, so I ran to get my binoculars and waited to see some movement. I continued to hear it for a few minutes, but I knew I needed to go in to get ready for my trip to the gardens in hopes of seeing this very bird. As luck would have it, the black-poll came out of the leaves and showed himself for about 10 seconds, long enough for me to get a great look at him before I went inside to get ready. I was so elated, and as I left for work, I could still hear him singing his song. Before departing the school, we had some morning announcements with the whole school in attendance, and while thinking about what had just happened in my front yard, I was overcome with joy and emotion, and behind my tinted glasses, I quietly wept. It's the first time in so long I felt so much fulfillment, not because of this particular bird, but what the whole process has meant to me and my life. Your podcast has contributed greatly to this journey, to the awe, wonder, curiosity, the pursuit of knowledge, and the connection to nature that has been instilled in me. As I sit on my front porch again this evening, writing to you, I feel my life has more purpose, and most days I can keep the emotional anguish derived from my pain at arm's length. I went for a run tonight with my bummed leg, and it was pretty painful, but I finished the run looking over the marsh where I can see one of my swallow boxes. Seeing the swallows and red-winged blackbirds flying around me within arm's reach, making their calls, and doing their thing was instant revival, and again, I wept tears of joy. I can say with some certainty that birds have saved my life, and so I often will say to myself that because they have taken care of me, I will take care of them however I can. The soundtrack to my renewed life is birdsong. Thanks again for your podcast. It does have an impact. And if you were wondering, I never saw the black-poll warbler in the gardens. 30 screaming 12-year-olds made sure of that. I did get to share some of my passion with them for a few minutes, and a few of them even listened. Lastly, I do have the idea of starting my own podcast or listening series related to the healing power of nature, in particular birding, for brain injury survivors or those suffering from chronic pain. I would call it Bird Brain, or something of the like. I know you'd all approve. Yes, we would. This letter might be the bones of the first episode. It takes me a while to commit to anything considering my limitations, but regardless, writing this in itself was therapeutic. Thank you again for taking the time to read this and for sharing your podcast with those that needed it, like me. Now go grab your binoculars and let's get into it with Marcel.
It's really neat to hear those words in spoken form. Yeah, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I wrote to you guys because it was, like I said earlier, it was really part of the journey for me is to just meet new people that have like-minded interests and just express my gratitude for things that's making my life more meaningful. So
I feel like something we always try to hit home on, and Shannon brings this up all the time, just how important it is to get outside and have a connection with nature and just how good that is for just your mental health in general, just to get out and see what's around you. And, even if it's not birding, just getting outside and seeing the natural world can have such an impact. And so after reading that, I was like, wow, that you really hit it on the head, Marcel, and have gone through quite the journey as well.
Yeah, it's been transformative. Just like I said in the email, that just being outside, just breathing fresh air, just with brain injury in general, it's really isolating. And I spent a lot of time, like years, I would say, in bed, just trying to recover from the day that I just had. So I would use my best hours, meaning like the best, my most, the hours that I felt my best, which to be quite honest was not, I didn't feel good. Those hours were spent doing things that was required of me, work, chores, whatever it was, and then I wouldn't have any hours left to give for my own pursuit of just to feel like myself. And so, yeah, just getting outside was that first step, and it just so happened that I came across some birds in a tree one day, and and here we are.
That the gratitude thing resonates so much with me. When John went away a lot when our son was little, and he always had trouble sleeping. He never slept through the night, and he would wake up in the middle of the night and say, "Mommy, I need my whole family together, my whole family." And then and then it would just descend. Do you think when my dad died when he was little, do you think Pa was in pain when he died of cancer? And I'm like, oh my God, we're having this conversation at 3 in the morning. Do you think Opal, our cat, was in pain when she died? And I'm like, oh my God, how do I have these conversations with a 3-year-old at that time of the day? But
Wow.
And so I panicked, and I started looking up ways in which you can kind of transform the way your thinking was. And so what I came up with was, I asked him, and I still do this, I asked him, tell me 3 things you're grateful for. And hoping that if I did that at night, his head would be in a better place when he went to sleep. And there wouldn't be so much of these traumatic memories that would go through his mind every time he kind of woke a little bit. But it lasted to where I think it's a really important thing to do every day. And sometimes it's trivial things. For him, it would be like, oh, when I got the M&Ms out of the little cup, I got a red one and I wanted a red one. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're 4, that's a big thing. But, you know, as it goes on, trying to focus not just on small things, but big things that you're interested in or that you're grateful for, I think really make a really big difference. I'm not very Pollyanna, and I'm not a glass half full person. That's John. And I think RJ and Amanda are more full than me, but I do think that thinking of things you're grateful for, and if you do that outside, it's a double whammy of good health.
Yeah, that my wife actually forces me to do some of those what are you grateful for today activities, and I'm grateful for her for making me do those things. And oftentimes the things I'm grateful for are bird related, which isn't a surprise now. Well, I saw this bird I haven't seen before, or I just there's swallows in the box now, or something like that. And it's just it's permeated my life, and it's really just allowed me to, like, bringing the pain along for the ride. It's not really in control, and so I have something else that, whereas my identity as an athlete or as a teacher or a husband or a son, a brother, like, the brain injury has affected all of those identities drastically. And so for a while I just kind of felt that I didn't really have an identity anymore. I couldn't be the things that people know me as, or as well as I'd like to be that person. And so birding and just being outside, I feel like I have purpose again in some way. Like I can satisfy my curiosity that I've always had, but now it's directed into something that is, I can go at my own pace. There's no rush. I can close my eyes, and that's for me, that's key to kind of reduce the stimulation around me sometimes, and I can just listen. It's really as the adventure that I have with birding. It can be as the learning curve can be as steep as you want it to be. You can and every day is different that way, and for me, like, some days I'm a little too intense, my wife will say, but I'll drag her along, and she's been really good that way. I'm fortunate to have someone like that to support this, and she did agree. She confessed the other day. She goes, you know what, I'm into birds now.
Awesome. You converted her.
Yeah, I have. It's nice to share that, and I know you four can appreciate that. Sharing that with your special person is wonderful.
Yeah, our son thinks bird watching's boring and that we move too
Yeah.
slowly. That was his that was his
Yeah.
take on it when he was little. But now, we share a Kindle account, and he accidentally started reading one of my books. It was a
Oops.
book by Ed Young, and I don't know if you've ever read anything that he's
No.
written. He's a reporter, but beyond a reporter, and he did a lot of really important work during COVID, like very heartfelt, informative work. He was some of the first, well, maybe he might be the first person who really talked about long COVID and the problems of long COVID and what people were suffering. And he got into bird watching during the pandemic, and he writes about nature now after writing a book about his COVID experiences. And Pete, our son, just started reading it. He goes, "Mom, have you ever heard of these things?" He started reciting these facts about sensory systems of birds. And I'm like, what the heck what are you doing? What are you reading? And he was reading this book, which, I think the way he writes is beautiful. His photography is beautiful. He is beautiful. His wife is fantastically interesting as well. So, anyways, go find
Yeah.
things that he's written and take a look.
I absolutely will. And long COVID is in some way related to me in a way, just the similarities and the symptoms of having like long-term issues with brain injury, just the fatigue, the headache. Like I haven't had a moment in almost 9 years where I haven't had a headache or I haven't felt fatigued. And so like I can definitely relate to that. So I'll definitely look for that book.
Yeah, and if you find his blog, I'll send you a link to it. But he posts pictures of of the things he's seen. And the other thing I give him I have a lot of respect for him is he has started birdwatching tours, small tours, groups, for people who have severe disabilities. Like they physically can't go places. And so the trips he plans and that he works with are accessible so that you could go on a wheelchair somewhere. You don't, you can do this with limited mobility. And I think that's really an important aspect too
Definitely.
of isolating people who have disabilities. You must feel that pretty dramatically.
That resonates a lot. Just while I'm still like able-bodied, just still not feeling like I can access things when I don't feel well, or like there are things now that I did before that I swear I'll never do again. Like I was a snowboarder, a baseball player. Like it's just too dangerous. I won't get on a bicycle. I'll never forgive myself if I fall off of a bicycle and just rattle my head. So just you'd think that being able to access nature should be easy, but even for me, being able-bodied, like it took a lot for me to get out of bed to go do that. And so I can't imagine people who physically actually can't do that, and knowing that could be something that helps them just feel human and just connected to the world around them, and to get outside of their box that they might spend a lot of their time in. Like I definitely can resonate with that.
I feel like Cedar Waxwings are a pretty nice example of a bird to get you going too.
Honestly, when I saw them, I thought they were just figurines in the tree. I'm not joking. And they started moving, and it was eye level. It was just like a bomb in my brain went off, like the curiosity, and I just couldn't believe they were real. And yeah, it's such a great moment for me, and I'm thankful it happened, obviously.
Cedar Waxwings have amazing feathers. So you need to come to the Field Museum. We'll show you them close up. But they have these like balls of wax looking like things on their feathers.
You and John talk about your work at the Field Museum, and I'm often just thinking, I'm like, I would not leave that place if you let me in there. And thinking, even like reading The Feather Thief, like I'm blown away. Like I feel like I will weep at the first drawer you open and I will see those birds
Yeah.
and I'll just be in awe. And like here, you know, I look at a crow and I'm like, that is so pretty and beautiful, like especially through binoculars. And if I get the chance to see some of these other birds that just that close is gonna and I already said to my wife, I'm like, well, I think we're gonna have to take a trip one of these days. Yeah, anyway.
Oh, I was going to ask, what is the wax on the wings and what's the purpose of it?
Well, the purpose is to look pretty.
Okay.
I don't think it serves other purposes other than
Okay.
that. And I'm trying to remember what that stuff is composed of. Do you remember, John?
No, but it's basically just a modified form of the feather on the tips.
Okay.
On the,
So
on
it's
the
just to
coverts.
look good.
So it's not actual feather. Or I mean, it is feather, but it's not like the traditional feather that we would know, I suppose.
It's a modification, I think, on the traditional feather. And you know, this is the kind of fun thing when we think about stuff in the collection. We show people there are these two birds that are in our what I call the gee whiz drawer. That one is a cuckoo called a malcoa from the Philippines, and the other one is a curl-crested araceli, which is a great name for a toucan from the Amazon basin.
Yeah.
And they have these kind of shiny. They take the what you know the waxwings have in a set of feather tips along the wing. On their head, they just are covered with these shiny, completely modified feathers, and it's just completely bizarre. And what the function is, people really don't know.
Wow.
They're made of, thank heavens for Google in this case. Not every case, because Google can lie to you, but this I know is
Yeah.
not a lie. It's a waxy red secretion. It's not true wax, but it's a carotenoid pigment that, you know, the same kinds of things that give fruits their red color that is kind of in this kind of waxy appendage thing to one of their feathers. Have you seen them drunk, Marcel?
Have I seen them drunk? So I'll backtrack a bit. So on a few days before Earth Day, my mom was down from New Brunswick, and we went to my favorite trail that I go to all the time. And I brought my camera. I got a new lens, and we just walked through, and I get to share this with my mom. I don't see her very often, but there was a flock of what I thought was cedar waxwings that flew in, and they happened to. I knew right away. I'm like, these are a bit different. Like that's where I'm at now. I'm like, I can tell the difference. I'm like, you don't look right. They were Bohemian waxwings,
Cool.
and I know they're similar enough, but they essentially just posed for me again. They just kind of went right there, and I got some beautiful photos. And it wasn't until a few days later I did an event in Halifax, a guided tour with an ornithologist with Ducks Unlimited, and I mentioned this to him. We just started talking. I'm like, yeah, I saw my first Bohemian waxwing. He goes, yeah, and were they drunk? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, they likely were, but at the time of year they would have been eating the berries from the trees that lasted over the winter, and he goes, you know that their livers are like, I don't know, 11 times more efficient in processing alcohol than ours. And I'm like, but they still get drunk. And I'm like, that's fascinating. Anyway,
awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, so I haven't
didn't
heard
know
about
that.
this. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
very cool.
yeah,
Yeah, this is news to me.
There's absolutely hilarious videos of them gorging themselves on fruit, and then people think they're dead. They go to pick them up, and the bird isn't dead. It's just actually dead drunk, laying on a sidewalk somewhere. Yeah.
I didn't. They weren't. They must not have been that drunk for me. But they stayed a while, and they weren't bothered by me. But it was also cool to see like how red their poop was. Like it was just straight red. There was, and then clearly from their diet. But it was just. I was like, wow, that was a neat moment.
That's awesome.
Yes, you'll have to go check out those videos, Amanda and RJ, because they're really
Yeah, I'm going to look
funny.
them up after this.
Me too.
And you can just watch people who don't know. I'm not even sure sometimes why they're taking video. They probably started taking video because you don't see too many places where there's, 10 birds that look dead just laying on the sidewalk in front of you. So I guess they start videoing them. Then they go to get closer, and the birds will like right themselves up and be kind of dopey and scare the crap
Splash
out
some
of
water in their
people.
face.
Really funny.
Marcel, I was going to say, one of the things I loved about your letter as well was, you went through your personal journey, but also just kind of how now it's like broadened your like like with your community, how you are talking with more people, they refer to you as like the bird guy, how you're
Yeah.
passing this on to your students. Like that's such
Yeah.
a awesome part of birding as well, is like getting to know more people. And I'm so happy to hear like that's broadened your world as well, to like meet more of the birding community and to be able to like share that with other people, because that must feel really special.
Yeah, at first it wasn't embarrassment's not the right word, but I kind of kept it low key that I was into birds, and it would come out in conversation, and I would maybe bring up a fact, and they'd be like, "How do you know that?" And then eventually, people just started asking me, like some questions. Like they bring me their bird questions now, my colleagues, which is funny.
That's awesome.
But we get to laugh about it, and I do get to connect with my colleagues on a lighter level now, because they know that about me, and I don't feel as though I'm as much as like the sickly person that I kind of carried around with me. And so when you feel that way, you kind of act that way. And it's really just brought just some levity really to my overall situation, and I get to talk to my colleagues, and it's funny. I have a group chat that some of us are in that they created, and well, I think my wife created the group chat, and with a few colleagues that are also kind of getting into birds, and we just kind of share bird memes with each other, and we laugh a bit. And my wife aptly named it flock and roll, which is pretty funny.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And they actually, my name in the group chat is Big Bird, which is even more funny. So, but yeah, so the community building, just for example, like yesterday, or 2 days ago, when I did a shorebird event here in Nova Scotia. We have just like such an abundance of migratory shorebirds that come through here, and I'm not a whiz with shorebirds. I'm in the forest. That's kind of where I'm at. And I went, and I was looking forward to it, just to identify some birds I haven't seen before, and just it was just a great reminder at how wholesome birders are. The birding community, just the people are so wholesome, and I think that's the best word I can use to describe them. And I want to be a part of that, and it makes me feel so good to be around such kind people. And they were at all levels. In fact, my wife and we won the contest for identifying the most birds.
Oh,
But
wow.
it wasn't shorebirds. I feel like I cheated, because I used my binoculars, and I went into like a farmer's field, and I just started. There was a big manure pile, and there was just tons of different birds that had nothing to do with the shore. And anyway, we ended up winning the competition. But yeah, the people there were just really nice, and I should say I was like, I'm led to so many different things when I go to these events or talk to these people. Where an example is. My goal going to this event was actually, I know that there was bobolinks in the area as well. So this bird that I haven't seen before, I know enough about it that I'm like, I want to find this bird. My goal was actually to find as many of those as I could. And I told the lead on that at the event, and she referred me to a study that is going to be taking place in and around my area on this bird. And so I'll come to that in a second. But as we were leaving, like my wife goes, "Marcel, holy frick, that's a bobolink right there." And we were getting in our car, and there was one right there. And I got my binoculars on it. I think I got a photo. I'm not sure. And then we drove out, and sure enough, we stopped in front of a farmer's field, and there was 3 more males just chasing each other around, and it was just so nice. And again, what was I grateful for yesterday? That was the thing I was grateful for. And the study that I was told about, there's a woman from actually the university I graduated from in New Brunswick, who's going to be coming to my area in Nova Scotia to do study on this bird. And I reached out to her. I haven't heard back, but I said, "Hey, this is a place that you can absolutely find these birds. I'm told they're here all the time." And I was like, "Whatever you like, if you need help with any of this, like just let me know." And I don't know where that's going to lead me. Maybe I'll get to work with some experts, and I'll get to just be with the birds, and I can help them catch them and work on their study with them, and there's just adventure to be had. And I'm so grateful. You can probably see in my face and in my voice that I'm just happy to be one with the birds. Yeah,
it's
and one more thing. So yesterday, I was checking on my swallow boxes that I have, and I go all the time. I'll go at least once a day, and I'm a little too nervous to open them. I did open one the other day, and there was a swallow in it, and I didn't panic, but I was like, okay, goodbye, and I closed it, and I tried to make enough noise that she would leave, but anyway, so I went to check on the boxes, and I brought my camera, and when you have I happen to have a long telephoto lens now, and that just piques people's curiosity, especially I'm just standing there looking at a tree with this big lens, and people who are walking by, they're just curious, and I say hi, and I make it known that I'm friendly, and they stop and talk to me. And just yesterday I met 3 people from the community that I'd never met before, and 2 of them were brand new to my area, and you could just tell that they were just exploring, and they happened to come across me, and I talked to them, and I welcomed them, and I told them some things to check out, and they were interested in what I was doing. I showed them some photos, some really nice photos I just took, and talked to them about the swallow box that's right there. And yeah, just those moments are, I think, few and far between for a lot of people. And this has allowed me to do that. And I'm looking forward to seeing those same people again. They're like, yeah, we'll see you again, I'm sure. They're always on the trail, and so am I. So yeah, it's really nice.
I think your experience is what got people through COVID, is doing exactly what you did there, right?
Yeah.
Because being outside was a safe place to interact with people.
Yeah.
And people were so alone inside. And I see it all over the place. You can see it all over social media. People who directly relate going outside during the beginnings of the pandemic, with now their obsession with bird feeders, bird seed, camera lenses,
Yeah.
bird houses, all of those things. Probably really good for Wild Birds Unlimited to have had so many people spending so much time outside. But, my house sparrows became my friends when we were inside so long. Eventually you can tell individuals apart from each other if you stare at them for long enough. We had a one with partial albino patch that we had for a couple of years, and then
that's
what
neat.
I'm sure after that was one of its offspring, which also had a white melanistic patch, not in the same place, but my guess is that it was an offspring of that bird, which had some kind of feather color producing defect in it. But whatever takes your mind somewhere else sometimes is a good thing.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Just a distraction, but a healthy one.
And RJ and Amanda, you guys started pretty much during COVID too, right?
Yeah, just around then as well. So, I mean, we're new to it as well, Marcel, and we've totally had the same fascination as you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so much fun to get out there and, I don't know, see everything and start, once you learn like a little bit about one bird, and then you go and try to find it again and observe it in a way, and I don't know.
You really, like, when I first listened to your podcast, I was like, okay, so we've got this couple that's like me getting into it, and they're asking a lot of the questions that I would ask, and so like that it was just really nice to I didn't have to be on the show to get some of my questions answered about what's being talked about. And it's just being able, like you said, seeing a bird for the first time and being like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to that same place and see if I can find it again later. And it was in the back of my mind, seeing some of these birds, and then, well, that got me back outside again. And then I started to see the same bird again, and I would just be curious about it. And while I'm waiting for it, I might observe, a tree that's nearby. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty tree. What is it? And then I've started to identify plants and flowers and butterflies, and it's just, my world is just growing bigger. It's not so small anymore. And I don't have to go very far from my house to do that. And I'm fortunate for that. I have even in my own yard, like I'm looking at my garden that is not fun sometimes to get going, my flower garden, but I'm looking at my poppies just bloomed today. And so I'm looking at them right now, and it's just, there's just a world out there that, like, it's always been there. I know it's always been there. And I like to say that with birds, they've always been there. They've always been talking to me. I've never listened, and finally I'm listening, and they've got a lot to say. They've got a lot to offer for me, and yeah, it's just it's a beautiful thing.
So have you seen a lot of belted kingfishers lately? I know you mentioned that's your favorite bird.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that for hours.
So funny enough, I haven't seen one here in Nova Scotia, but I did go to Ontario in April, and we went to my in-laws, and on our way we flew into Ottawa. We had to drive 3 hours, and they live on a beautiful stretch of the Trent River. It's just actually near a conservation area too, and so I had not really got to bird at their place before, because this is so recent for me, and we were only there for a few days. But actually on our way, we stopped for lunch, and we just had a little lunch at a picnic table outside of a Subway, and it was near a body of water, and I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear the rattle, and I'm like, no way. And I just stop, and I see this kingfisher just fly in front of us, and that was the first one. It's the only one I've seen, I think this spring, summer. That's the first one I've seen, and it just happened to be I was having lunch in another province. So I haven't seen one yet this spring or summer. But I did see one here in February, which was really interesting to me. And I know now that they're not obligate migrants, that they'll stick around. So that's kind of neat.
As I say, Marcel, you know way more than RJ and me.
Oh, I dove in, like, pun intended. I dove headfirst into the birding experience.
That's awesome.
That's
you
so
can
cool.
tell. We can tell. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
But you guys have enjoyed belted kingfishers.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
We love.
I think that's
those.
our favorite bird as well.
Totally,
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually just recorded a bunch of kingfisher episodes that we're going to be releasing shortly
That's
as
so
well.
exciting.
So yeah, that'll be coming up soon. But we were so excited to talk about them.
Yeah. And Marcel, you brought up something in your email, in another email that RJ and I had never heard about. It was the false eyes.
Right. Now, Shannon and John, correct me, please, but what I understand, what I've read, is that these white eye, or these white dots just beneath their eyes, are used for hunting, and kind of like the looking down a barrel of a gun, so to speak. So like it's a sight line, but also my understanding is that it helps to correct for refraction in the water. So obviously when we look at something in the water, it's not exactly where we think it is or see that it is, and so they actually use those false eyes to help them adjust for being accurate when they dive. I mean, that's my understanding. I don't know if I'm on point.
Yeah, you have to change the curvature of your eye to focus sharply once you get in the water. So if you think about it, I mean, diving into the water is really stupid.
Yeah.
And nobody has adequately, I do not know the answer to this, as to why they don't drown. You know, some birds are known to close the operculum, the hole, and other birds change where the hole on their beak is. But why don't they drown?
Wait,
Are
so
they-
water just goes in their nostrils or their holes then?
Yeah, why? I mean,
There's nothing blocking.
when you go
or-
underwater, if you were to go breathe underwater, say you didn't know you should hold your breath, right? So you're the first human that dove in the water. First off, you'd probably hurt yourself a lot because we all know what a belly flop feels like. But second off, your instinctive response would be to breathe. You'd breathe in, and you'd breathe in water, and you'd drown. So
Yeah.
why? First
I
off,
think you got
why?
a little leeway before that happens. Like that's the and
Maybe.
over the last, what is it, 15, 20 million years that kingfishers have been doing it, for
Yeah,
instance,
30
the divers.
million maybe. Yeah.
I wonder if they, like, do they hold their breath, or do they exhale as soon as they hit the water, or that's
I think a lot of birds exhale because if they want to go deeper into the water,
Yeah.
having that much air, especially the way
definitely.
bird lungs and their respiratory system works. So you have to kind of get the air out, or you can't go down far enough.
Yeah.
But
That's
you
true. I
think
know
about
as humans. But I was a lifeguard.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was a lifeguard for a long time, and yeah, I definitely understand. Like with training, exhale if you want to give us some trouble in training.
no thanks.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead,
with respect
sorry.
with respect to fall size, I was gonna say that I think, you know, there are other birds like kestrels, for instance, where I think those eye patches are to some senses designed to have birds looking at them from behind think they're looking at them. So pygmy owls in the Pacific Northwest have these spots in the back of their heads. If you take a picture at the right angle of a white-breasted nuthatch, I think they actually look an awful a lot like a blue jay looking at you. And downy woodpeckers may be the same way, where they've got a setup on their back where that black and white pattern may actually have some ability to sort of say to other birds, hey, you know, I'm looking at you when you're not, which is just fascinating to me. So
That
there's
is fascinating.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I feel like, John, you've said that about possibly European goldfinches too.
I mean,
Like some of the
I'm
like the red on the
definitely
back of their-
wondering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And these birds, you know, they spend a lot of time sitting on thistles trying to get their bills into these to grab these seeds that are ways in. So they're not looking at what's going on around them. And so, yeah, I think natural selection has somehow helped them deal with that by having that coloration and that patterning.
Cool.
I feel like Amanda and I used to live in Steamboat, Colorado, and there's, you know, mountain lions out there. And one of the things they always said to do when you're hiking to avoid like a mountain lion is to put your sunglasses on the back of your head.
Oh.
So it looks like you're looking that way. I don't know if it's like, if there's any truth to that or not, but
That's
like
I don't know
that.
what you're talking about made me think of that.
That's awesome.
No way in hell.
No.
Am I
I-
relying on a backwards pair of sunglasses to protect me from a mountain lion?
No, wait a minute.
Nope.
RJ and
study
Amanda
that.
have never been attacked by a mountain lion, correct?
True,
That's
true.
true.
There we
That's
go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
So
say the
I have
study for that.
like a mountain lion anecdote. I worked at a dude ranch in Wyoming, and it bordered a wildlife refuge, and there was mountain lions everywhere. And the warden like talked to the dude ranch staff about the wildlife refuge and stuff, and he didn't really give any safety tips, but he did say if you see a mountain lion, you're already dead.
Oh, jeez.
so don't worry, you're already done.
So you have enough experience in your mind now that you're pushing RJ first, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say. You're right. Who can
Who runs faster?
exactly
Right,
who can
right.
get out faster?
We were looking for fox sparrow nests in outside of Lake Tahoe in this very swanky place, Lake Tahoe, and we were up in the mountains, and it was the second day we were gonna someday at the beginning of the time we were there going up, and a woman on the exact same path that we were on got mauled to death by a mountain lion.
Oh,
So
gosh.
then you think the
Yeah.
next time you go up the path, you hope the thing is full and it's not coming anywhere near
Yeah.
the place where it had a very great deal of success. But then there's all these warnings about going into certain parts of the park after that. Yeah, you definitely wish you had eyes in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. But I was more afraid of moose.
Oh,
I
Moose
thought
are-
was what was
Yeah.
going through my head.
Yeah.
You're right.
They're nasty.
that's
I've-
more
They're big.
dangerous. And
I've come
Yeah.
across a moose about 15 meters from me. So what's that? 40 feet. A bull moose with no barrier between the moose and I. But I was along a trail and it was walking. It was like it was making its like the breathiness of it. You could hear it. It was incredible. And my wife and I, we were walking along this trail, and we kind of just walked parallel with it for a good 5 minutes, and it was just the most incredible experience. And I told her, I'm like, we need to see if there's something we might have to run behind just in case. But we weren't a threat to it. Now, unfortunately, while we were doing that, there was an emergency alert that went off on our phones. What if you know what those are? We have them once in a while for whatever, and it was loud. And this moose, luckily it didn't care, and so we moved on. Like our time, anyway. It's incredible. They're massive. I respect them.
Yeah.
So is that your area? Do you have moose in your area?
So in Nova Scotia, there's actually some conservation efforts that I learned about for the mainland moose. So we don't really have very many. If you're familiar with Cape Breton, so northern Nova Scotia, it's an island, but it's massive, and that's where the majority of the moose are in this area, and at least in Nova Scotia. And that's where I saw this moose. But in New Brunswick, growing up in New Brunswick, they're everywhere. In fact, they just put up, I shouldn't say just, they put up moose fences along the highways, like hundreds of kilometers stretches
Oh
of
my gosh, can
highways.
you imagine hitting a moose with your car?
No.
So I know people who have. I've
Wow.
Yeah, and in fact, my father was a highway patrol police officer in New Brunswick, and his stretch of highway was extensive, like hundreds of kilometers, and he would often be the first one on scene to a moose accident, and he had to prepare himself. Yeah.
It's like hitting a cow or something.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
I
But-
think they're bigger than cows.
Yeah, the body,
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
the whole body will just come into the car rather than you just take the legs. Anyway, yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
not pretty.
So
Yeah.
Dave Willard, our collection manager, grew up in New Jersey and used to go up into Maine and go birding. And he had a VW Bug, and he hit a moose that absolutely totaled the car.
Oh,
And,
man.
Oh my gosh.
He's lucky.
Yeah,
He
I'm
is
surprised he
lucky.
didn't drive under it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, with the VW.
Seriously,
with
with
the
the
bug.
bug.
I think that was on Mythbusters. I'm not even something along those lines. I'm not joking. I think I recall an episode of them testing something like that.
Oh,
Speaking, so you mentioned Maine, and it just crossed my mind. So next week, actually, it's my birthday next week, and this is the second year that we're going to do what I call now the Great Birthday Bird Hunt. And so last year, I'm turning 35 next week, and so we're gonna go to one of our favorite places and try and find 35 species. But in relation to Maine and New Brunswick, I'm going to also try and get into New Brunswick. And one of my other favorite birds that's been very elusive, and they don't really come into Nova Scotia much. There's sightings often, but not enough that their range extends into Nova Scotia, is an indigo bunting. So a really blue, if you're familiar with it, it's a bird I really want to see. And I'm just going to take a trip into western New Brunswick and just drive along the back roads of the province and along the border with Maine and just see if I can find one. And that's going to be something I'm going to do this month, I hope. So
that's
kind of
awesome.
a birthday trip. I'm going to pretend my friends, I'm going to tell them that I'm there to see them in New Brunswick, but I'm really there to go drive around and just stop at roadside fields and see if I can find one.
Neat.
But anyway,
Be prepared that, like, when they're if you see them sitting on the wire, sometimes they can actually look black, basically. Like
Really? Okay.
the blue won't pick
good
up.
to know.
Yeah,
Because I
different-
haven't heard one. I mean, I can listen to Merlin all day, but I haven't heard one before, so I don't have like that reference of like, what am I listening for?
Yeah.
But yeah, with the idea of like blue pigment not being, a thing that birds can produce, like, and I learned a lot about that actually from some of your episodes. That would be good to know. Like, I'll have to get the light right in order to really
Yeah.
be able to pick one up.
Yep.
We picked one up last weekend.
Yeah.
We had dinner with our son in Chicago, and it's not an uncommon bird to hit building windows.
Yeah.
And we were walking from where we parked into his apartment with his girlfriend, and she spotted a bird on the ground, and it was an indigo bunting. We picked it up, and then she can, even though it's tragic, but she could look at it up close and see what that bird looked like up close in a way that a picture book is not going to do for you. But there's just something about actually looking at the way that feathers are and the fact that the light hits it differently, and they look like a completely
Yeah.
different color depending on the light.
Incredible.
And I took it into the museum and prepped it as a specimen.
Wow.
So now her name's in our database, and it's that always tickles people to know, and so much so that when Dave Willard has people from varying Audubon societies in, or from the collision monitors who go around and pick up the buildings, he always brings out a bird that has their name on it at these events, so they can actually see the physical specimen that came from them picking that bird up and bringing it to the museum.
Well, you're gonna see me maybe this summer at the door of your museum with a bag of birds that I picked up along the way.
It's happened before.
I bet.
We'll teach you how to prepare one.
Oh, that would be amazing. I mean,
It's
all of it
not
is,
as gross as people think it is, actually. And it was preparing birds that made me realize that crime shows are overly dramatic. That, in terms of the guts and gore and stuff that they show in those TV shows. It's just not like that. Dead things are not like that. Even
I don't know,
things
but
that smash
if
their
you
head.
hit a moose with a car,
Well,
then
that's a
it's
bit
crime show.
different.
that's
I'll ask my dad.
Okay. Or if
Ask your dad,
or if
exactly.
the possum or the armadillo or the raccoon explodes because it's been rotting on the side of the road in the heat for too long.
Right.
That's gruesome.
Yeah.
But
We're gonna eat dinner soon, so
oh, you cannot be that wimpy being around us at this point.
you
Right.
got me with the exploding one.
that one of the interesting things about this adult male indigo bunting, which is blue as opposed to the females, which are brown with wing bars, like dull wing bars, was that its skull was 70% ossified, which is just kind of bizarre, and it probably means it was a first-year bird, but at the same time it had a completely blue plumage, and so I wonder where it was headed. And you think about those birds that you'll hopefully find next week, and they spent the winter down in Central America, and it's like,
And you just sparked another thing that was on my mind that really makes birding meaningful to me now is I kind of, the analogy I use is if you're watching a sports game and you don't understand the game, it's not as meaningful. You're there, you're just not invested in what's going on, and when I go out, and it obviously it's taken so much time for me to learn about these individual birds, but knowing their actual story, how far they've come, and particular birds, if I hear them, I can picture it, and I know it's there, and I know a little bit about its story, and that just makes it, I feel like I'm in the game, sort of, so to speak. Just, yeah, like I remember I would explain, I used to coach football after I played, and that's one of the sports that a lot of people don't fully understand, and on TV I would explain it to them. They're like, I get it now, and like I enjoy it more now. Like I'm gonna actually enjoy watching it. So it's kind of that's the feel that I have too, with just understanding where they came from, and just knowing. And again, another comparison to my situation, it's just they are fragile yet so resilient, and that's kind of how I feel about myself. Like, yes, I am fragile, but I have to remind myself that I am resilient. And just like birds, it's a funny analogy, but that just came to my mind. You just mentioned that, just migration and all that. So yeah.
I mean, there are birds that go from one pole to the other.
Yeah,
Almost to the
it's
other.
wild.
You think about that.
Like
that's
when-
nuts.
The black pole warbler, like, with learning that about its migration, and I told that to the kids about some of them, the ones that are in Nova Scotia on their fall migration, they'll fly across the ocean for 3 days straight and nonstop, and the kids just kind of looked at me and they were like, what do you mean? Like, where do they eat, where do they rest? I'm like, they don't, they just go and they're back here and at the end of the winter, and they'll do it again. It's just, yeah, it's incredible.
I think trying to get middle school kids of all the ages might be the hardest thing I could possibly imagine.
Oh, it's funny that this is the career that I'm in, considering what's happened to me, where the things that makes my symptoms worse are literally all the things that my job requires, which is, but it's still obviously rewarding. And the kids have no idea really that, my story, unless they ask me. Why do you wear those glasses inside? Like, is it because you think you look cool? I'm like, well, I do look cool, but no, it's not. It's not. And then I'll tell them. So it's a point of pride that they don't know my story, but when I tell them about it, they're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, like people with brain injuries, we're good at masking. That's kind of a good way to put it. And that's exhausting too. But yeah, so children, they are curious and they do ask questions. And, but yeah, that was just a really nice moment that I was able to kind of share some of those things with the kids. And we're actually, a colleague of mine, he actually is like the wizard in all things nature and science. And I've been able to develop a stronger connection with him through birding. I've invited him on some outings, and he has a background in forestry, and he's incredible. And we talk now about science and birds, and where he mentioned, he's like, why don't we get a set of school binoculars for the kids? Like that's something we should do. And I'm like, absolutely. And so I'm hoping in the next year or two, I might be able to have a set of 20 binoculars, and I can take kids on bird walks just out in the local trails, and like that's maybe make it a club at school. And like these are the things that I'm looking forward to, or like my work isn't so much like providing me with like the things I do that makes my symptoms worse. I can find things that are meaningful, and that's going to help me get out of bed in the morning when I wake up with a headache every day. And it's just, it's stuff like that. I'm looking forward to what's ahead.
When I'm in schools, if I can, I shut every bit of sound off and I open the windows and I ask them to tell me what you hear.
Yeah.
Because you can't go anywhere in the world where there aren't birds.
Yeah.
And even if you live in inner city Chicago and you walk 2 blocks to school, you can almost certainly see at least 3, if not 5 species of birds every day.
Yeah.
So, and if you know what they sound like, you'll hear even more. And they're like, no, we can't. I'm like, oh, yes, you can. And you prove it. You open the window and say, what do you hear?
Listen.
And now the use of technology brings in a whole different group of kids, right, who love to use their phones, who maybe you can convince to use their phones in a new way. The competitive thing that you use, as an elite athlete, that you kind of translate things into the competitive aspect of it. But I think that's true. That can happen if you challenge them to put records in eBird, for example, to tell them that every sighting they have matters.
Yeah.
And they can chart their own progress, or be competitive with their friends about who actually saw the most birds and who put their birds into eBird. And I think there are ways now with the use of technology to really bring different kinds of people into that kind of environment.
Yeah, we're having a lot of professional development on how we can better use technology. Like I'm only 35, and even just 10 years ago, teaching, like using tech, it wasn't everywhere. You didn't use it in every subject or as often as we are trying to use now, because that's the name of the game. Kids, like, technology is so useful if it's used in the right way, and if it's non-distracting. And you're right, just being able to incorporate that, because we're not getting rid of the technology. We might as well use it in a meaningful way so that we can enhance their learning. It's just needing to teach them how to use it responsibly. That's the big one.
But I think that's a learning process too, and getting them to realize the various cool corners, and from my perspective, that are out there in terms of things like, Shannon's mentioning eBird, or you can find a picture or a vocalization of almost any species of North American bird, I think, and that's a gateway for folks.
Yeah. And just enhancing the whole experience. Like, without Merlin, the Merlin app, it would have been a slower process for me to really start to, and I don't rely on it as much anymore, but it was so helpful. There were definitely some false IDs along the way that I'm like, holy crap, I just found something that's only in Siberia, or, you know.
As I always say, get a picture.
Yeah, exactly.
We do that all the time.
Yeah, and that's partly why I got my camera, and yeah, just it's been so useful, and I've gotten into the eBird game too, which is really fun, and just kind of tracking, you know, what I've seen, and yeah, it's just those two things have enhanced the whole experience too, and you can use them as much as you want or not use them at all. But I mentioned the Merlin app to the kids when I gave them that little tour or that explanation. I think a few of them downloaded it, and I think they were using it. But what was really nice was the goal of that day was partly a photography clinic, but also like talking about birds, and there was a professional photographer that was there giving a little guidance to the kids on how to take nice photos with their phones, and then they were sent off to do their thing, and my colleague who was running the whole thing, he said, all right, kids, now send me your favorite photo that you took, and I'm going to put it in a frame, and we're going to display it in the hallway. And a lot of the photos, they're in the hallway right now, a lot of the photos are of birds.
Cool.
They were ducks, they were accessible, mallards just walking around, but the kids chose their favorite photo, they were birds. And they were able to identify the bird, the mallards, the male and female, and after I explained to them the differences, and so like just that connection is just, it's really small, but to a 12-year-old, like it could spark something. I don't know.
Shannon, you always point out that all these things have a ripple effect. It's like, you know, you teach somebody, Marcel, you're teaching the kids in your class, who knows what they're telling their friends and their family, and it's like it's just going to get everybody. You know, it's contagious. The more you're interested in birds and the nature around you, the more it spreads.
I'll say one moment quickly that was so nice that I think of, and it was last summer, and I was in my favorite trail, and I was walking along. I had my binoculars, I didn't have a camera, but there was a father with two young kids, probably 7 or 8 years old, and they saw me just looking up into a tree, and at the top of this tree, and they're like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? And I told them, I'm like, you see up there, that bird that's up there, that's a eastern kingbird. And they're like, oh, what's that? I was like, have a look. And I gave them the binoculars, and their minds exploded. It was so neat. And I was like, you know what's even cooler? Like, their scientific name is Tyrannus tyrannus. Like, and they walked off, and I could hear the boy say to his dad, he said, Dad, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
like,
cool.
And he didn't say that to me. He said it to his dad. And I'm like, I have no idea if they now have binoculars and they're birding, but like, just I can imagine that's something that maybe that sparked them to do something like that. So yeah, that was a nice moment.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, Marcel, this has been so wonderful having you on. I'm so glad you reached out, and it's so nice spending time with you and hearing your journey, and it's really inspiring to hear, and just love like the place that you're in right now and where you found this sense of community and this, I don't know, love of birds. It's definitely contagious hearing it in your voice, and so it was fun to hear that from you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this has been really special, just chatting with you great people, and it's enhanced my life, and I just hope it can lead others to healing and just peace that it's kind of brought me. So and I appreciate you having me on so that I can. It's only recently that I started being able to better advocate for myself, but now I feel like I'm advocating for others in similar positions, because the more people that can understand that people like me with brain injury survivors, we're amongst you, and there's more of us than there should be, but it's just I want to thank you for giving me I guess a platform today to talk about my journey, and I hope I have an impact.
Disabilities are often hidden, right?
Yeah.
So you don't know when you look at someone. I don't hear out of one of my ears, and
right.
That's a recent thing, and it's completely thrown every aspect of my life off. I can't. Going hiking is, I mean, it's a death trap for me because I fall so frequently. I have to be so careful where I put my feet. But you don't know that when you look at me.
Right.
You would have no idea what was wrong.
Similarly,
Unless
yeah.
you ask me to find the bird in nature and you watch me spin around because I can't find things anymore. But,
Yeah.
you know, and people are so ashamed. And
Yeah.
there are times when I would like a giant sign sticking out of the top of my head that says, "Don't talk to me in my right ear. I cannot hear you." You know, this is
Yeah.
a real thing. I cannot hear if you talk to me on the right side of my head. So you'll hit me with your bike. I'm not stupid. And which is the immediate thing people think. I've been
Yeah.
called stupid a whole bunch of times since losing my hearing because I can get so confused. And, you know, the way you wake up with a headache, if I'm in sound too much, the same thing happens to me the next day. I have what I call a sound hangover. And as soon as I wake up in the morning, I can feel the assault on my brain that too much sound has happened in it from the day before. But things just are. You can't,
Yeah.
I can wish them away all I want, and I do sometimes. But the rest of it is like, okay, well, I can't just stay at home in dead silence.
Yeah.
Given that that's the place I feel most comfortable is dead
Yeah.
silent, no music, no nothing. And that keeps people isolated. That's why
Yeah.
depression and suicide are
Absolutely.
so much higher for people with disabilities.
Mm.
If you're, so I mean, it's courageous to talk about it and
Yeah.
not, because that gives permission to other people to say, I don't know, or I can't do it. And to know that they're in a group where they're not going to be negatively judged because that's an honest expression from someone. I can't do that. So you figure out what you can do, and then people will do it with you.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't help anybody if none of us talk about it.
Yeah.
I want every person to get hearing tests because there are all birds they're not hearing because they've lost high frequency hearing.
Yeah.
Like 2/3 of birds they can hear maybe, and then there's a whole 1/3 of them with high pitched frequencies. They're not hearing them.
Yeah, blackpoll. I miss blackpoll warblers.
Like the blackpoll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But now you don't because I made you get hearing aids. So now he
It
can
helps.
hear them.
Sometimes cedar waxwings too. Actually,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, Marcel, I
said.
know you said that you were toying with the idea of starting a podcast to kind of advocate for like the healing of nature, and I definitely, if you're interested in that, you've been fantastic on here and are a great
Yes.
advocate
Oh,
for
thanks.
your journey. So I feel like, yeah, I wish you success with that. And if you do launch something like that, let us know because we'd love to have you back on to promote it.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
this has been a good first step in just finding the courage to just talk to the world. So thank you.
I mean,
You've
do you
helped me.
remember yourself at 12?
I do.
The idea that a teacher would be, that you could look in a teacher and see the suffering and resilience of an adult, and to feel that you're suffering and you're feeling inadequate, you can get through it, or that maybe this teacher will understand, and it's a touch point for people to talk to you,
Yeah.
so that they don't suffer as much by themselves.
Yeah, connection, just being honest with and raw with students, and they'll just want to talk to you and feel comfortable, because you can't learn if you don't feel comfortable with in the room that you're doing the learning, especially the person that's doing the teaching. You need to be able to connect with them on more than just a teacher student level. You have to trust them and know them a little bit, and I feel like I'm starting to share more with my students, and I think they appreciate it. And you're right, 12-year-old me would probably look at me and say, yeah, he's someone that I would be okay to talk to if I needed to. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's great.
How did history and French become the things that you are teaching?
Yeah, that's people ask me, they're like, oh, so you must be a science guy, right? I'm like, well, no, in fact, I teach French and history. But so growing up in New Brunswick, it's the only officially bilingual province in Canada. And so even though I grew up in the southern part of New Brunswick, it's Anglophone. My dad being from Montreal, we didn't speak French at home, but my parents wanted me to learn French, so they put me in a French immersion program where all my classes were in French, so math, science, everything from grade 1 to around grade 10, 11, and then grade 11 and 12 I could just kind of choose what I wanted to do. But that's where the French kind of came in, and then history. So I did all of the highest level sciences and maths and physics that I could in high school, thinking maybe that's what I would do, that all of my doors would be open for university. And then I started in university, and I took just a variety of courses, and the most brilliant people that I learned from were the history profs, and they just, the way they could just speak about the past and just historical perspective, it was inspiring. So I was like, hey, I want to do that too. I want to be able to connect with the past because it informs our present and our future. And so I did a double major in my undergrad, history and French. And then I'm like, okay, now what? I'm like, I'm not very employable now that like, what can I do? I have a history and French. Like, what can I do with that? And so I then did a master's degree in history in Montreal, and so I got to use my French there as well. And from there, I'm like, okay, I have a master's degree in history. I'm still unemployable. And so I had done so much coaching growing up, and I was like, you know what? I think teaching will be a good route for me. And so I had the teachables. You need to have 2 teachables in Canada to be able to get a teaching degree. You have to have enough courses background. And so I did my teaching degree, and I kind of went from province to province, and I ended up in Ontario, and I became a qualified French and history teacher, and that's where I met my wife, and here we are. So she's a teacher too. She's a theater teacher. She is a lot of fun. She is a lot more fun than I am. And so she brings the energy, and I bring the birds.
You're a lot of fun and a lot of energy too. Yeah.
This is my superficial nature, because you live somewhere where the person is from that I want to most be when I grow up, and that's Nathan McKinnon.
Oh, yeah.
And so
He's a hockey
I started.
player.
Yeah.
He's a hockey player, you guys.
Yeah.
For the Colorado
For the
Avalanche.
Colorado Avalanche.
Oh,
So
okay.
so this is a big giant list of fairly recent NHL players who are from New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, because
Yeah.
I got curious.
Are there any from New Brunswick? I don't even think
There
there
are
many.
actually.
Okay.
One of them was just
Huberdeau. Yeah. Huberdeau.
Jake Allen, the New Jersey goalie, is
okay.
from New Brunswick. Lucas Cormier, who is a Vegas draft pick,
Got it.
who now he plays in the AHL. And I was looking at, because he's young. He's a 2002 birthday. And then their latest one was drafted by the Carolina Hurricanes and has played a few games with them. His name is Brad Nadeau, and he's a 2005 birthday. So he's, just turning
Young
20
pup.
probably.
Yeah.
So yes, I know. It's just when I was doing it, it was so much fun, and I'm like, man, you are so superficial. You are.
No,
No.
that sounds fun.
But Brad Marchand is from
Yeah.
Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So he's the little ball of hate in our world.
Yeah.
My brother's
Yeah.
a Bruins fan and was
Yeah.
a big Brad Marchand fan, and I'm a Brad Marchand fan when he's playing for Canada, Team Canada, but
Yes.
not so much when he's playing elsewhere.
Yeah.
But Matthew Highmore, John, he's a Blackhawk. He's from Nova Scotia.
And Sidney Crosby.
Yep.
Oh, I
Yep.
didn't know
Another
that.
person I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right, well, Marcel, we can let you go then.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
I appreciate
think it would be nice to have you on again another time.
it. Anytime. This
Yeah.
has
Yeah,
been.
if we want to do a bird-specific episode, if you want to come back and we can talk about, we could do a waxwing episode even. We haven't done
Yeah.
that
Oh,
yet.
for sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
You let
Yeah.
me know, and I'll make the time.
Bohemian or
'cause-
Cedar?
Wow.
Cedar.
Ooh.
Cedar.
Oh,
I don't think I have not seen a Bohemian, I don't think. No offense to them.
They're meaner looking.
yeah.
I
Oh,
think.
okay.
So
Yeah, but they're waxwings. They're not mean.
They're not me. Do they get drunk too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
lots of things that eat berries do.
okay.
Which when you think about it. So
Well, I want to
Yeah.
look for, like, I feel like we see Cedar Waxwings quite often, but
know.
I want to look for them and see if they're looking tipsy now.
I know.
I'm gonna look up those videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime you want me back, like I'd be
Totally.
thrilled. This was special. So
Yeah. This
Yeah.
was
you
awesome.
might like this podcast. We're going to be on theirs, and they're coming on ours on Sunday, called Extremely Accurate Bird Sounds.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever seen their podcast.
you gotta
But
write
oh
it
my
down.
God, they are hilarious. Absolutely and utterly hilarious.
Hysterical.
It sounds like you just try and make bird sounds. You try and
But
sound like a
they're
bird.
actual
Name that bird.
musicians who know a lot
Oh, I
about
get it.
birds, and so they actually create music. And they are the one today has someone we know, Dan Baldessar, is on the podcast that I started listening to this morning. But yeah, so they make their own music and
neat.
tell stories about birds and make music related to the bird sounds that they are talking about. It's funny. And then you're gonna have to play that to your 12-year-olds, because
Gosh.
I'm always curious to know how someone of that age, what they think about when they hear a podcast like that. What goes through their minds?
I can tell you, it's
You
probably
got to
like,
remember, you got to tie it into French and history.
yeah, somehow the history of this
Give it
bird.
to your forestry colleague.
Yeah. Oh, he would take it and run with it. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Marcel.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks so much,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Marcel.
So great.
Yeah.
Thank you again. And
What's your wife's first name?
her name is Carly.
Carly. Well,
Yeah, Carly.
say hello to her from us then.
I will. She's
Yes.
eagerly waiting in the other room with all of our pets. I had to barricade the door to get some privacy. And she's, 2 cats and a dog, and they're going to be at the door, I'm sure. But yeah, I'll say hi. And we look forward to hearing the episode when it comes out.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and thank you to Marcel for joining us. Reminder, if you have a question for us, you can reach us at podcast.birdsofafeather@gmail.com. Please leave us a rating and review in your podcast app. It helps us spread our reach even further, so thank you in advance for helping out with that. Okay, we love you all. See you all next week with a brand new episode on Kingfishers.